The shock waves of that December morning in 1942 would ripple across the entire Pacific theater. Japanese pilots stared in disbelief at wreckage scattered across New Guinea's jungle canopy. 12 American fighters had just demolished 40 of their aircraft. The impossible had happened. What those veteran Japanese aviators witnessed that day defied everything they understood about aerial combat. Their legendary Zeros and Oscars lay burning in the tropical undergrowth. The Americans had vanished back into the clouds as quickly as they had appeared. The young farm boy from Wisconsin, who helped orchestrate this devastation, was still learning his craft. Dick Bong had no idea he would eventually become America's greatest fighter ace. He was simply doing what came naturally, flying close, hitting hard, surviving. Behind the controls of those twin-tailed aircraft were pilots who represented a new breed of American warrior. They flew machines that Japanese intelligence had dismissed as clumsy and ineffective. Reality painted a very different picture. Steam rose from the jungle where Japanese aircraft had crashed. Smoke columns marked the end of an era. The rising sun's dominance over Pacific skies was beginning to crumble. Japanese commanders received the initial reports with skepticism. 40 fighters lost to 12 Americans seemed impossible. Their pilots were the best trained in the world. Their aircraft had proven superior in every previous engagement. But the evidence was undeniable. Wreckage told the story. Body counts confirmed the nightmare. American air power had fundamentally changed overnight. The twin-engine fighter that emerged from American factories looked like nothing seen before. 2 Allison engines mounted on extended booms, a central nacelle housing pilot and armament, speed that exceeded 400 miles per hour, range extending over 1,000 miles. Japanese pilots had grown comfortable fighting American P-40 Warhawks and P-39 Airacobras. Those aircraft played into Zero strengths, tight-turning battles, close-range combat, dogfighting where Japanese experience dominated. P-38 Lightning pilots refused to play by those rules. They struck from above, fired with devastating accuracy, climbed away before retaliation was possible. The hunting had reversed. Dick Bong's journey to that fateful encounter began in rural Wisconsin. Born September 24, 1920, in tiny Poplar. Farm life surrounded by 8 younger siblings. Parents who had immigrated seeking the American dream. His father Carl arrived from Sweden as a boy. His mother Dora represented Wisconsin-born stock. Together they worked small acreage and raised 9 children. Dick was the eldest. Responsibility came early. Aviation captured his imagination when mail planes passed overhead. They flew toward President Coolidge's summer retreat. Young Dick watched from farm fields. Dreams took wing in those moments. Superior State Teachers College provided opportunity in 1938. The civilian pilot training program had just launched. War clouds gathered across Europe and Asia. America needed pilots. Dick demonstrated exceptional natural ability from his first flight lessons. Instructors noticed something special. Hand-eye coordination, spatial awareness, instinctive feel for aircraft control. His private pilot's license came quickly. Advanced training followed. Military service beckoned as global tensions increased. The farm boy prepared to become a warrior. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, Japanese naval aviation reached its zenith. Veteran pilots had perfected their skills in China. Carrier operations demonstrated unprecedented capability. Zero fighters dominated every encounter. Saburo Sakai exemplified Japanese aerial excellence. 28 confirmed victories. Surgical precision in combat. Tactical brilliance that devastated Allied formations. His reputation struck fear into enemy pilots. These men had established air superiority across the entire Pacific region, from Pearl Harbor to the Philippines, from the Dutch East Indies to New Guinea. Japanese fighters ruled supreme. Their confidence was absolute, their aircraft superior, their training intensive, their experience unmatched. American resistance seemed futile, but American industrial capacity was awakening. Aircraft factories operated around the clock. New designs emerged from engineering teams. The P-38 Lightning represented revolutionary thinking. Lockheed's twin-engine fighter incorporated lessons from European combat. Speed mattered more than maneuverability. Range extended operational capability. Firepower concentrated in the nose eliminated convergence problems. Initial production began in 1941. Early models suffered teething problems. Engine issues plagued reliability. Control systems needed refinement. But the basic concept was sound. By late 1942, improved versions reached Pacific combat units. The 39th Fighter Squadron received the first operational aircraft. They traded their obsolete P-39 Airacobras for Lightnings at Brisbane. Port Moresby became their forward operating base. New Guinea's strategic position controlled approaches to Australia. Japanese bombers attacked regularly. Fighter escorts accompanied every raid. The stage was set for confrontation. American pilots flying revolutionary aircraft. Japanese aviators commanding proven fighters. December 27, 1942, would determine superiority. Dick Bong had earned his commission through determination and skill. Military flight training revealed exceptional ability. His instructors included future Senator Barry Goldwater. Recognition came early, but recognition also brought trouble. Bong's natural aggressiveness translated into unauthorized stunts. San Francisco became his personal playground. The Golden Gate Bridge his obstacle course. Looping around bridge cables drew attention. Buzzing office buildings caused complaints. When prop wash scattered a housewife's laundry, official discipline followed. General George Kenney could have ended Bong's career. Instead, he recognized raw talent. The punishment fit the crime. Bong would hang the woman's laundry personally. This incident launched, rather than ended, his military future. Kenney requested Bong specifically when assigned to command 5th Air Force. The troublemaker from Wisconsin was exactly what Pacific operations needed. Japanese intelligence underestimated the P-38's capabilities completely. Early reports dismissed it as heavy and unwieldy. Combat reality shattered those assumptions immediately. The Lightning's twin-engine design provided redundancy and reliability. Battle-damaged aircraft could return home on one engine. Pilot survival rates increased dramatically. Concentrated nose armament eliminated the convergence problems that plagued earlier fighters. 4 50-caliber machine guns and 1 20mm cannon fired through the propeller hub. Every bullet followed the same trajectory. Most shocking was the aircraft's performance envelope. High-altitude capability exceeded 40,000 feet. Diving speed approached 500 miles per hour. Climbing ability surpassed every Japanese fighter. American pilots learned to exploit these advantages ruthlessly. High-altitude patrol positions. Diving attacks with overwhelming speed. Zoom climbs to safety before counterattack was possible. The December 27th engagement demonstrated this tactical revolution. 12 P-38s positioned themselves above the Japanese formation. 40 enemy fighters provided escort for attacking bombers. Traditional logic favored the Japanese. Superior numbers. Proven aircraft. Experienced pilots. Combat history supported their confidence. But the Americans had studied previous engagements carefully. They understood Zero capabilities and limitations. Most importantly, they had aircraft that could dictate engagement terms. The attack came from directly above. P-38s dove at tremendous speed. Concentrated firepower devastated the Japanese formation. Climbing ability carried them beyond retaliation range. 11 Japanese aircraft fell that day. American losses totaled just one P-38. The exchange ratio was unprecedented. Japanese confidence suffered its first major blow. Dick Bong claimed his first two victories in that engagement. A Zero and an Oscar fell to his guns. The Silver Star recognized his achievement, but individual awards mattered less than the strategic implications. News of the victory spread throughout both air forces. American pilots finally had a weapon that could challenge Japanese supremacy. Japanese aviators faced their first serious threat. The psychological impact extended beyond simple kill ratios. Japanese pilots had grown accustomed to controlling every engagement. They decided when to fight. They chose the altitude and tactics. P-38 pilots reversed this dynamic completely. Americans now possessed superior aircraft. Range advantage allowed them to appear anywhere. Speed advantage let them control engagement timing. Japanese tactical doctrine required complete revision. Avoid altitude disadvantage. Refuse combat unless conditions were favorable. Concentrate on bomber interception rather than fighter combat. These defensive measures reflected fundamental changes in Pacific air warfare. The hunters had become the hunted. Japanese aerial supremacy was crumbling. Dick Bong's rise to prominence accelerated rapidly. Natural flying ability combined with aggressive tactics. Close-range shooting compensated for mediocre marksmanship. Results spoke for themselves. His approach was uniquely effective if unconventional. Other pilots maintained safer distances during attacks. Bong closed to point-blank range. Some engagements ended with collisions. Flying through enemy aircraft debris became his signature. On one occasion, he collided directly with a Japanese fighter. Both aircraft survived. The encounter was credited as a probable victory. This extreme aggression shocked Japanese pilots accustomed to more cautious American tactics. Their previous opponents had fought defensively. Bong attacked with reckless abandon. Stories of the aggressive American pilot spread through Japanese airfields. Whispered conversations described encounters with a demon who materialized from nowhere. Close-range attacks that meant certain death. Intelligence reports began warning against single combat with P-38s. The confident, aggressive tactics that had served so well early in the war were being abandoned. General Kenny recognized the Lightning's strategic value immediately. Requests for additional aircraft flooded headquarters. European theater priorities limited Pacific allocations. Every P-38 was precious. Despite limited numbers, Lightning pilots began accumulating impressive victory totals. Competition developed between squadrons. Ace status became achievable for skilled pilots. The 39th Fighter Squadron established local air superiority immediately. Their first combat action on December 27th demonstrated P-38 capabilities. Subsequent missions confirmed initial success. Japanese bomber formations required increasing fighter escort. Daylight raids became prohibitively expensive. Night operations increased by necessity. American bomber crews noticed the difference immediately. Fighter escort could now accompany them to any target. P-38 range eliminated the protective umbrella limitations that had plagued earlier operations. Strategic bombing campaigns became feasible. Japanese installations throughout the Pacific came under regular attack. No target was beyond American reach. The human cost of this aerial warfare was enormous. Experienced Japanese pilots were irreplaceable. Training programs could not produce replacements fast enough. American pilot training reached full capacity. New aviators arrived regularly. Quality remained high while quantity increased. The balance was shifting decisively. By early 1943, Dick Bong had achieved ace status. 5 confirmed victories marked him as an elite pilot, but his score continued climbing rapidly. January 8th brought additional success: B-17 and B-24 escort missions over Markham Bay. Japanese fighters attempted to intercept the bomber formation. Bong spotted another American pilot in trouble. A Ki-43 Oscar had gained advantage during turning combat. Intervention was necessary immediately. A frontal attack from above shattered the Japanese fighter. The Oscar exploded and fell 18,000 feet into Huon Gulf. Another pilot saved. Another victory confirmed. Individual achievements were impressive, but the broader implications shocked Japanese commanders more. American fighters could operate anywhere with impunity. Range capabilities that had seemed impossible were now routine. Missions exceeding 950 miles became standard. Fighting occurred deep over Japanese territory. Such operational reach was unprecedented. Japanese pilots found themselves defending targets they had considered safe from attack. Nowhere was beyond American striking distance. The psychological warfare was as devastating as physical combat. Constant vigilance exhausted pilots and ground crews. No rest was possible. American fighters could appear at any time. Operation Vengeance in April 1943 demonstrated P-38's strategic capability. Admiral Yamamoto's interception required a 1,000-mile overwater flight. Only Lightnings possessed necessary range. The mission succeeded completely. Japan's greatest naval strategist died in the jungle. American fighters had struck at the heart of enemy leadership. News of Yamamoto's death sent shockwaves through Japanese command structure. If their most important admiral was vulnerable, no one was safe from American air power. P-38 pilots had proven they could appear anywhere, strike any target, return safely to base. Strategic depth no longer provided sanctuary. Dick Bong's personal tally continued climbing throughout 1943. His unconventional tactics remained devastatingly effective. Close-range shooting produced consistent results. Reports described his innocent appearance belying aggressive nature. A cherub who transformed into a killer in the cockpit. The contradiction was disturbing to enemies and allies alike. November 1943 brought official recognition. The Distinguished Service Cross and Silver Star acknowledged his achievements, but more victories followed immediately. By early 1944, his total approached the World War I American record. Eddie Rickenbacker's 26 victories had stood unchallenged for decades. April 12th marked a historic milestone. Bong's 26th and 27th victories surpassed Rickenbacker's record. America had a new ace of aces. The symbolic importance was enormous. A new generation of American warriors had exceeded their predecessors' achievements. The torch had passed to younger hands. Japanese intelligence reacted predictably. Warnings about avoiding P-38 combat became standard. One-on-one engagements were forbidden unless absolutely necessary. The confident hunters of 1941 had become cautious prey by 1944. Defensive tactics replaced aggressive operations. Survival trumped glory. Personal elements added human drama to these aerial encounters. Bong's relationship with Marjorie Vatndal provided stark contrast to combat realities. Meeting his future wife during 1943, Leave changed his perspective. Love letters replaced combat reports during quiet moments. Marriage plans competed with military duties. His P-38 was rechristened Marge in her honor. A large photograph decorated the nose. Personal touch humanized the killing machine. Japanese pilots could understand such gestures. Many carried personal items into combat. Traditional rituals preceded dangerous missions. But they couldn't reconcile the gentle lover with the ruthless killer. How could someone devoted to his girlfriend be so merciless in aerial combat? The aircraft Marge became legendary throughout the Pacific theater. Distinctive markings made it instantly recognizable. Red wingtips and propeller spinners stood out clearly. For Americans, it represented hope and individual achievement. For Japanese, it symbolized their declining fortunes. Fear followed in its wake. Technical superiority combined with tactical innovation created American advantage. P-38 pilots learned to maximize their aircraft's strengths while minimizing weaknesses. High-altitude loitering became standard. Diving attacks delivered concentrated firepower. Zoom climbs carried them beyond retaliation range. Zero fighters retained advantages at medium and low altitudes, but P-38 pilots refused to fight there. They dictated engagement parameters completely. This tactical maturity represented evolution of American air power. Early war mistakes had been analyzed and corrected. Lessons were being applied effectively. The strategic balance had shifted decisively. Lightning pilots in the Pacific theater downed more Japanese aircraft than any other Army Air Force type. P-38s became the standard fighter until war's end. Their combination of range, firepower, and performance was unmatched by any contemporary aircraft. Individual Japanese pilots faced a form of aerial nightmare. The same opponents appeared repeatedly. Damaged American aircraft often returned to base. Twin-engine reliability meant battle damage rarely proved fatal. Single-engine flight was possible. Pilot survival rates were exceptional. This psychological burden was crushing. Fighting the same enemies again and again, never achieving the satisfaction of permanent victory. Experienced Japanese pilots were being systematically eliminated. Training programs couldn't replace losses quickly enough. Quality was declining rapidly. American pilot training reached full capacity. New aviators arrived with adequate preparation. Numbers and quality both favored the United States. By late 1944, transformation was complete. American air superiority was absolute throughout most of the Pacific. Japanese resistance was crumbling. Dick Bong's final combat missions occurred during this period of dominance. Voluntary hazardous sorties over Borneo and the Philippines. 8 additional victories brought his total to 40. December 15, 1944, brought the ultimate recognition. General MacArthur personally presented the Congressional Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration for its greatest fighter pilot. The ceremony was rich with symbolism. MacArthur's famous declaration inducted Bong into the Society of the Bravest of the Brave. For Japanese pilots still fighting, those 40 victories represented more than individual achievement. They symbolized complete reversal of aerial fortunes. American pilots now ruled the skies from Australia to Japan itself. The psychological impact was devastating for remaining enemy aviators. January 1945 marked the end of Bong's combat career. 40 victories secured his legend. The ace of aces was finally ordered home. His war was over, but the impact continued. Japanese pilots remembered encounters with the farm boy from Wisconsin decades later. Tragically, Bong's story ended on August 6, 1945. Test flying a P-80 jet fighter in California. The same day, atomic bombs began falling on Japan. The irony was profound. America's greatest propeller-driven fighter pilot died as the jet age began. Aerial warfare itself was transforming. For surviving Japanese pilots, memories remained vivid. They had witnessed firsthand the transformation of American air power from weakness to dominance. The shock of those encounters marked the Pacific War's turning point. American pilots in superior aircraft had not just matched but exceeded Japanese capabilities. Legacy extends far beyond individual combat records. These engagements represent fundamental shifts in aerial warfare's nature. American industrial and technological capability triumphed completely. A generation of pilots emerged who could stand alongside any in the world. Dick Bong's 40 victories symbolized America's transformation from sleeping giant to dominant air power. The shock began with Japanese pilots' realization they no longer ruled Pacific skies. The wreckage scattered across New Guinea that December morning marked the beginning of the end. American air power had awakened.